It's funny, Benji. We've been doing this content thing for the last few years. Obviously, I've openly talked about this is what I went to school for. This is what I wanted to do for a living. This is what I do with my life. And at times, I've always had a feeling that the fan side of me is getting less and less. That as soon as the game's over, I have a couple minutes where I think about how I felt about the game, or I let the fan side of it get out. And by the time like the countdown is over on the post game, if I'm producing or if I'm hosting, it becomes, all right, this is now work. And the fan side of me dies inside. And a lot of people go and do things like they go skydiving or they watch horror movies. That's really been my thing, like to make sure that I still feel things, right? I do things to make sure that my adrenaline gets pumping. And in the last 4 or 5 days, I've had both ends of the spectrum remind me that I still can't feel extreme fan feelings for this basketball team, whether it be the euphoria of Friday night and them making the conference finals. And then I hate to say it, but last night, the utter devastation that wouldn't let me fall asleep, that wouldn't let a lot of Knicks fans process that actually happened, and it happened to us and happened to us again by that team, but happened on one of the biggest stages that the franchise has been on for the last 25 years and completely
the biggest.
Well, so that's the element of it that I think is what's making it even hurt
so
even
crazy.
more is like they haven't been in this spot in 25 years. They get to this spot to the first time since 2000, and that happens. Like that's our first trip back to the conference finals, and they blow a 14-point lead with 2 minutes and 55 seconds left. It's a surreal realization that this was how their return to the conference finals went. You know, Benji?
Yeah, I had such a similar phenomenon happen to me because I've become so analytical about it that I almost am. It's so separate, like the result, because I'm so focused on the process and then also just like the analysis that is divorced in a way from the result. And the content comes whether they win or lose, right? And I haven't felt like that. And we'll get into it. Like I haven't felt like that since 2001. And I was a young lad in 2001. I sat there. I mean, like we could go behind the scenes a little bit. I was supposed to go on the post game with Macri. I called you and I said, "Are you sure you want me to do this?" And you thought something terrible happened to me. Nothing terrible happened to me. I was just literally like, I don't know what I'm going to contribute to a post game show with. I'm sitting here like a fan, heartbroken and shocked at that result. And the whole analytical side just kind of flew out of me. Yeah, it was a unbelievable experience. Unfortunately, a negative one, but yeah, we can still feel it, buddy. Like it's still in here.
Still in there.
It can hurt.
Yeah. When you called me last night, it's actually on playback. If you watch on the watch along, you'll see me suddenly answer my phone. And I'm like, I just suddenly disappear from the stage, and I tell you, yes, I'd like you there. And I was feeling what you were feeling. I was feeling what John, a version of what John was feeling. I was angry. I don't know how I was that angry, but
yeah.
I looked at, when you came onto StreamYard, and to get a little more behind the scenes, patrons, like, we do a quick sound check usually when Benji gets there, when DJ gets there, when whoever is hosting. It's just a quick sound check to get the mics going. I didn't do a sound check with you last night. I didn't realize it until the countdown had ended and you were pale, and I was also as equally as shell shocked.
I'm always pale, buddy. Always
right,
pale.
but more pale than usual, Benji.
Damn,
like
that's
this was. We all had seen a ghost, and it was the ghost of Reggie Miller. It was the ghost of. It was a combination of the 94 collapse and the 95 game one collapse, because of it being game one, because of being a slow, gradual collapse in which some extreme shot making and some incompetent basketball was being played. Look, there is no full analytical side of this. I'm sure the grade book, when it comes out, will do its best to be your form of processing all of it. But like, have you had a chance to reflect on last night and what happened and how it happened and who's most responsible for what happened and how it happened?
So, yes, I will tell you the grade book is going to do with everything except for the last 3 minutes. Okay. I will not be breaking it down because I don't think I actually, in a funny way, I think the least important part of the game going forward is the last 3 minutes of the game. Now, the series might result based on the last 3 minutes of that game, but in terms of like what carries forward for the Knicks in terms of strategy, in terms of gameplay, in terms of tactics, that's the last 3 minutes have nothing to do with that, because it was its own just mismanagement of a significant lead. That, I mean, it could come into play again if they have another significant lead and blow it. But like that's not when tip happens in game two, they're going to be thinking about all the things they did, both positive and negative, and frankly, mostly positive, that put them in the position to win the game, to put them in the position to have a 99% win probability. Like, that is the stuff that they will focus on going forward. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on. I have had a chance to think about the last 3 minutes, however. Macri painfully put me through it again on the post game play-by-play, and I've been thinking about little else, frankly, since. First, a lot of things had to go really wrong, even that's out of their control. And the fact that the tying shot went 25 feet in the air off the back of the rim is like so many things have to happen. Like, that is an insane bounce. When's the last time you saw a bounce like that?
It's Kawhi.
When does that? Kawhi at least dripped on the rim 4 times like it was a soft touch. This was a clank. This went flying. And for it to it's just crazy. Yeah, and then his foot's on the line, so I guess they caught a break. But like, the fact that the shot went in at all was so insane. It's after Mikal tips the ball, and it's the free throws. You know, I've seen a lot of discourse about the lineup change. And we've talked about the starting lineup not being that good for a long time. And it's not to say that the starting lineup should play together less, or even the starting lineup shouldn't be the starting lineup. Those are fair points. And I probably right. But the idea that they lost the game because he inserted Mikal Bridges and Jalen Brunson back in the game and took out Mitch and McBride. Like, first of all, I think Mitch came out with like 4 something to go. They're going to foul him in that scenario. They're in the bonus. Now, of course, things went so badly that, okay, we could say like, oh, so let them foul them. And it couldn't have been any, but you don't, like, at that position, you're trying to protect the lead. You want to kind of milk clock, and you want to get, good shots. And so the Hack-a-Mitch possibility there, that we're already in the bonus, I think is the move. Removing him is the right move. Like, objectively. Deuce is a different story. And you could tell me that Mikal should have stayed out, or Hart, or whoever you want to say. I don't think it's unfair. I also think it has very little to do with those guys blowing that lead, because when you talk about the starting lineup not being good, you're talking about it more in the sense of when, over the course of a really large sample size, that lineup is getting outscored in the course of normal play. This is not the course of normal play. This is like basic fundamentals of how to close out a game like that. That has very little to do, in my opinion, with the lineup that was chosen. Any 5-man unit, I don't care who it was, should have been able to close that game out with relative ease. And that's not to say the coach doesn't take any blame. Of course he takes blame for anything like that. He takes a slice of the pie, no question. But frankly, even if the coach fell asleep, those 5 veterans should be able to close out a game like that. Even if one of the 5 players took a nap during gameplay, the other 4 should be able to close that out with relative ease. Like it is on everybody involved. But like in terms of like lineup construction, that's why they lost. To me, that's a very silly perspective in this instance, because this was about late game execution for a bunch of veterans, not about like how good the lineup is, you know?
Yeah. When Jalen Brunson checked back into the game, it was 111-98. And then 2.5 minutes later, they had added to the lead. So the notion that the two different conversations here, as far as I'm concerned, like the notion that it's an indictment of the starting 5 and the problems that it's had, that it is why they blew the game, is a bit of a stretch for me. It is poetic in my mind, Benji, that the starting 5 that has been aggressively mediocre chose to be aggressively detrimental and historic down the stretch, and that this happened on their watch for sure. But again, they were scoring points. They had gained a point onto the lead. They had built a 14-point lead with 2 and change left. It's a fair second guess if you want to say why wasn't Deuce in there. This has just been the second guess since February, so it just continues to be part of that conversation. Whereas your $200 million forward wing in Anunoby had a rough 2.5, 3 minutes. Josh Hart had a rough 2.5, 3 minutes. And look, I don't want to. You literally needed 14, 15 things to go wrong in order for that kind of collapse to happen when you blow a 14-point lead with under 3 minutes left.
And Neesmith had to make every one of those.
That's part of the thing that had to go wrong, right?
And there's defense, and there was defensive malpractice in terms of like, again, coach's fault for the players on not understanding that you have to cover the 3-point line, especially as the guy got hot. To me, no. First of all, there's no way in hell Tibbs isn't telling them to take away the 3-point line. If he's not, I'm shocked. We don't know that, first of all. Even, again, if Tibbs was unconscious, if someone bashed, if Timothée Chalamet took a chair and bashed Tibbs in the head and he passed out, if I was playing in the game, I'd know to take away the 3-point line. These guys are NBA veterans. There's not a young team. I'm sorry. There's no excuse. There's no coaching excuse. That is squarely on your players to not do a better job of taking away the 3-point line. And even with that said, those were insane shots. 3 of them were high degree of difficulty threes. That's where the credit comes in. Yeah, this team has some magic in it, Indiana. And it's going to take a large effort by the Knicks now, and larger now than it was before game 1, to shut off the magic wand or whatever, the magic energy source that seems to be infusing them right now. Because it is a dream run for them. And the shot making, especially late, has just been unprecedented. And it was last night. So, yeah. It's crazy. It's just crazy that it happened, and now it happened, and now you move forward.
The one thing of the 14 things that needed to go wrong that I think is sticking with me, because like they could play bad coverages, and OG can be late getting out to Neesmith on threes, and missed free throws happen, and like crazy Halliburton shot to tie it, whatever. Jalen Brunson gets the ball inbounded to him, and they have one timeout and 32 seconds left. And there's a path for him. They're up 5 to just dribble to the 3-point line and run the clock out. You're the point guard, just dribble around. Maybe they foul you so you don't run the clock out. And you get to the line, you take 2 free throws. Now, he could have missed both, and then they're in the same spot. But I trust Jalen to at least hit one of 2, maybe even both there. And you're up 7 with under 30 seconds left. And he inexplicably throws the worst pass of the night to OG Anunoby. And that leads to the foul that's then reviewed and reversed, and it's Pacers ball. And that gave them.
And by the way, again, things that went wrong. Not an obvious review. Like that was not that would not have shocked me either way. It was a great challenge. I understood the call, but I thought you could have either called the slap on the arm, even though he got ball, or the jersey pull underneath. And they decided to go marginal contact, got ball first. Rough. And yes, Jalen should never have thrown that pass. but also like, my 6'8" demon should probably just catch the ball and dunk it. And it's both. It's both. Both are to blame. Man, yeah, just crazy that all this happened. But I strongly believe, and I said this last night, I really do believe that Tibbs and these players, with Brunson leading the charge, woke up this morning and just got to work. Because there's no time to do anything else. You took last night. I'm sure last night was brutal on them, as it was for us. But if Tibbs has any effect on a team at all, which he does, from the positive, it's just the attitude of next game, we prepare the same way, no matter what. This stuff happens. They really do embody that, and I take solace in knowing that. Like, this is not. I'm not saying they're going to win tomorrow night. I think they will, but I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying it won't be because there's some game one hangover on this team. I don't believe that at all.
I hope not. I went and looked at some of the losses like this that they've had where I've felt that way in Knicks history the next day, and like, how did the group respond? The Reggie Miller 8 points in 8.9 seconds. They won by 19 against the Pacers in Game 2 in '95. Back then, a 19-point lead is like a 30-point lead. Today, the Pacers scored 27 second-half points in that game. Game 2, 13 in the third, 14 in the fourth. How you doing? The Tyrese Maxey game last season, Benji, that felt gut-wrenching. 2 days later, they beat Philly in 6. So you're hoping for a game like that, a bounce back. You win the series. You win the game 2. Then suddenly it's a 5-game series. You can, as an athlete, or even just as the Knicks, you can then spin it as, we had a historic collapse and we've dominated 94 of the 96 regulation minutes. And now it's best of 5 where we just have to win one road game to regain home court. That, I would imagine, is the mentality for
that's right.
These guys, Yeah,
that's right. And they had Rick Carlisle going deep for solutions. They had him, Miles Turner off the floor, Obi at the 5, Ben Shepherd getting minutes. Like, he was scrambling to find something. I almost think more for Game 2 than Game 1. Like, I'm not sure Carlisle thought that was really in reach. And every button he pushed obviously worked, but that is a positive to take away. Like, they had Indiana searching. Towns and Brunson were both pretty much unstoppable. They found, with the 2 big lineups, some defensive solutions. The pick and roll defense was really disappointing for, I would say, most of the game. And even with that disappointing pick and roll defense, they were up whatever they were up. So a lot of positives to take away. Really, a lot of positives to take away. And I think there's a lot they can do even better. So from that perspective, it's like, you were in position to win the game without your best game. You had Indiana searching for answers with their and not playing their normal lineups. Those are the positives taken to Game 2. And you clean up the stuff that kind of messed you up, especially in the first half. Terrible pick and roll.
So I did send you a rundown for what we should talk about today. And you mentioned that you haven't felt this way since 2001. I don't believe you were referring to the Knicks 5-game series loss against the Toronto Raptors in 2001.
No.
When is the last time you had this feeling as a sports fan? And it can transcend and go outside of the Knicks. Like, is it a Yankee loss? You said 2001.
So it's Game 7, 2001 for me. And that is such to bring people back. I am a 9-year-old young man, and Yankee fans of my age range will understand that we literally grew up without losing. That is a unique space to be in. There are not many kids who, like me, did not think my team could lose. Now, that might make me insufferable, and I still probably have a bit of that, right, Andrew? You know well.
No comment.
But like, that's how it was, and I didn't do anything to earn that, but it was just literally, since I was a conscious Yankee fan, they never lost. And so 2001 was like it broke that invincibility, which for a kid was like the most devastating thing I'd ever experienced. Certainly at that point, I cried my eyes out. And for whatever reason, maybe it's because of how 2004 with the Yankees happened, where you're up 3-0 and every game is like, all right, we lost that one, but at least we'll get the next one. And then game 7 was such a blowout that I didn't even have time to feel that way. Like, it wasn't like a shocking thing. It was like just an overwhelming barrage of Ortiz and Manny hits and homers. It didn't even feel that way in 04. But 01 was like just a shocking moment where the invincible team with the invincible closer blows the World Series in game 7. That was wild. And the Knicks haven't had any moments like that since. So I had the Rangers, I am a Ranger fan, but not the Yankees and Knicks are certainly like a tier above. So I don't think I've ever felt quite, the Rangers have had some really brutal losses over the last decade.
Nothing like this. Yeah,
nothing like this. And this doesn't compare to those because this is game 1. It's fundamentally different than the finality of a game 7 loss. So that's where the perspective comes in. That's why I feel better tonight talking to you than I did last night already, and starting to think about the positives they can take and getting ready and getting excited again to watch game 2, because that game was fun to watch for long stretches of the game. But I haven't, just like in the aftermath of a loss, I have not felt like that since 2001. I really don't think I have. But you have some Mets moments. Why don't you tell us?
Little bit. Now, so it's funny you bring up 01 and 04 because I think they both combine to equal the feeling of last night, where the suddenness of a game 7 loss, like the 2001 World Series, that's the bullet, right? Like, that's the actual gunshot hitting you, and you're like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen, and it just happened.
Yeah.
And 04. 14, 15 different things have to happen for you to blow a 3-0 lead. Right. And there's a stolen base here and a walk-off here and a ground rule double here and a fan interference and an A-Rod interference there. And then game 7. So there's the multiple things that have to snowball for that type of comeback to happen, like they did last night. And I think I have to go 06 and 07 in that the Mets have their 06 game 7 against the Cardinals. And I said this on Casual Friday today. I cannot watch Carlos Beltran if I see that the silhouette or the game, that the replay is about to happen and Adam Wainwright is about to throw a pitch and I know what it is. I immediately turn my head. I've only seen the replay of that swing and miss, or excuse me, not swing and miss because he didn't swing, that called third strike to end the series. I've only ever seen it a second time once. Like, it was in 2015, getting ready for the World Series. They put it on like one of the replays. The Mets haven't been to this far into the playoffs since blah, blah, blah. And they played it. And I just, you know what? I will watch this and I will tough my way through it. I watched it. It's like, okay, I'm good. I saw it a second time. And now I turn away every chance I get that someone puts a GIF in. If you send that as a GIF, if you're trolling Yankee fan, first of all, it's appropriate because you want to dig deep. You then get muted immediately, so I never have to see you or your tweet again. Trust me. But I look at that moment, and then the following year, where for the Mets to blow a 7-game lead with 17 to play, a lot of things have to go wrong over the course of 17 games. And 06 is still the one that haunts me the most, and I think the Halliburton shot will be the thing, like Luis Gonzalez, like Adam Wainwright, Beltran, that you just don't want to ever watch the replay of that ever again. Shout out to Sam Vecini. I had to go find for a YouTube thumbnail the picture of Halliburton doing the choke sign and was forced to relive that moment.
He is so lucky.
He is. Benji, I'm not even saying like lucky that they won in overtime. He's lucky that they weren't down 3 and he thought he tied the game and did that.
That's what I mean.
So, okay,
that's what I mean.
You're going that direction. Yeah.
It's like any scenario where that doesn't actually win the game, he looks like the biggest fool. He's very lucky.
Yes.
Hell, if they call the goaltend on Brunson's layup, we might not be here, by the way. It's just how many things. It is remarkable, man. Someone asked me, a friend was like, what about game 5 of the World Series last year?
Why would happen?
And I was like, Oh, you guys will be fine. I know, but Soto looks like he's happy there. You guys will be fine this year, I'm sure.
Him and his extra 10 pounds.
So look at another pitch there, Juan.
Yeah.
So no, it's not even close. First of all, they're down in such a hole that, again, like to win the World Series, even if assuming they win that game, which of course they should have, like they have a long way to go. So it's not like, but also it's in the 5th inning. Like it wasn't the 9th inning, so like there's not a finale. Like I thought they could still win the game going forward, and then they didn't. But that was kind of like an anticlimactic thing. Whereas this is the end of the game where it just falls apart like that, and then it's over. But hey, here we are. This is therapeutic, but we're moving on, and I am looking forward to game 2. I'm looking forward to kind of flushing this. I'm sure the team is too. Get back out there and take care of business.
A new basketball game. I would like to see more basketball played in this series, partially because I don't want to think about the last 7 minutes that we've seen in this series. But yeah, they need to win this series in order to make sure this loss. Obviously, just like what's at stake is the finals, but now the added anxiety on the behalf of your fan base that you need to win this series, so we never think about this loss in the context that we're thinking about it again. It becomes just an irrelevant footnote. Like, hey, remember how sad game 1 was, and then they won the next 4? Wasn't that crazy? Like, that is the thing that they now face. This hill that they now have to climb, and
make it into the Reggie choke.
Yes.
Kat said it was a great quote. He's like, "We're not here to repeat history, we're to make history." Great quote, but also wrong. Repeat history. Do exactly that. Last time someone put a choke sign on us, we won the series. So just do it again.